Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session. My name is Lina Ravindran Green, and I'm the founder and CEO of Angels of Impact, which operates in the Asia-Pacific region and headquartered in Singapore. I come from about 30 years of experience in tech and 15 years of experience in social entrepreneurship and social impact investing. Angels of Impact, just to give you a brief of who I am, was founded in 2016, and we fund and support women and Indigenous-led community-based enterprises doing the hard work on the ground, alleviating poverty and achieving gender equity through responsible and sustainable businesses. We work with empowered women who empower other women by aggregating smaller entities and helping them get up the value chain, thereby effectively taking them out of systemic poverty and systemic gender transformation. Traditional forms of impact investing often doesn't reach them. Even impact investing, looking to do good and do well, many are missing middle, too large for microfinance and too small for impact investing. Therefore, we recognize we need to really be talking about, and that's what today's session is about, new forms of restorative finance with innovative and less extractive terms, because after all, our goal is toward resources to shift wealth and power back into marginalized communities with the lived experience to restore the harm that was done and build self-determination and ownership. The pandemic, as we all know, has hit social enterprises very hard, and many of them have lost up to 75% of their revenue. At Angels of Impact, we have been busy funding and supporting social enterprises to get them through this pandemic and thrive. We are pleased to say that many are now on the path of growth as one. We're therefore delighted to be invited to moderate this session, which we did last year as well, to explain how we can all work together to build back fairer together. Goma, did you have something to say before we start? No? All good? All right. So today's session, as all of you know, is entitled Catalyzing Recovery of Social Community Enterprises for Transformation, CRESCENT for short, a regional recovery and innovation initiative in the Philippines and Asia-Pac. Last year, for those of you who attended, you would remember that we talked and tried to gather input on the strategy that we should take. And we were looking initially at a very global strategy. And a lot of the input was for us to look at a regional perspective. And that's what we've done. And today is about presenting to you some of the work that has been done. So in today's session, we have three key goals. Present the results of the CRESCENT action research in Philippines and Asia-Pac. Gather your feedback and suggestions to advance the CRESCENT pilot phase in the Philippines and the Asia-Pacific, including possibilities for learning exchange with other regions. And last but not least, to explore opportunities and challenges in pursuing social entrepreneurship as the pathway towards inclusive recovery, building back fairer, and accelerating the SDGs in general, and CRESCENT in particular. We're going to start off this morning with welcome remarks from Jeru Belirmora, who is the co-founder of Catalyst 2030, she's really amazing. I'll really recommend anyone to Wikipedia her, very impressive background, but little to say, she's the founder of several innovative and award-winning NGOs and has over 20 years of experience running systems change organizations. As you know, the founder of Catalyst 2030, which you all hear at this conference, she's also a Scholar Awardee, Ashoka and Schwab Fellow, with many accolades. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Jeru to the floor. Jeru, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can hear you, but can't see you. Oh, now I can see you. There you go. There you are.
Okay.
Hello.
On two devices because my internet is giving problems. So I don't know how to. Okay, now you all can hear me, right?
Yes, now we hear you well. Thank you.
Okay, so firstly, thank you very much for having me at this session. I'm really, really pleased. I think CRESCENT is one of what we call the flagship initiatives of Catalyst 2030. And the reason we have that is because basically it's one of the community, it's truly a community led and driven project. It's looking at the people in the community, it's looking at recovery, it's putting people at the center. For us, we think that CRESCENT is one of the main ways, and the way they have organized themselves is one of the main ways in taking things forward in community-led development and in an expedited recovery program and process. And I think that is the reason why we at Catalyst support CRESCENT and look at it. And of course, all of us are big Lisa fans, so that's a different matter altogether. But I think that is the main reason. We do think that what is happening with CRESCENT can actually spread through many other countries through South-South collaboration. And that is also what Catalyst really, really promotes, is that there are ideas from the South which need to go through the global South, because COVID recovery in the Netherlands is at a totally different scale than COVID recovery in Philippines or India or many, many parts of Africa. So what we really hope is that CRESCENT and what it is doing in the blueprint it forms is also something which can be looked at if there is funding available to go to different parts of the world, to be able to have a South-South dialogue and to be able to expedite change. And that is the reason we really believe and support CRESCENT and hope that the program can grow and take shape and move forward. So these are just a few of my points. And with that, I hand back to you, Lina. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jiro. Yeah, many of us are fans of Lisa. That's why we're here.
I think that goes for me being fans. I'm your fans as well.
Great. So I guess without further ado, the next phase will be introduction by Dr. Marie-Lisa Dakane, who's going to talk to us about CRESCENT. And for those of you on this session who may not be as familiar, I'm just going to briefly mention that Dr. Marie-Lisa Dakane is the founding president of the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, also known as ISEA, and is a pioneer in social entrepreneurship education and research in the Asia-Pacific region. In 2019, she was awarded as Outstanding Social Innovation Thought Leader of the Year by the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship, and she's the co-chair of Catalyst 22 ASEAN chapter and focal point of the Social and Community Enterprise constituency of the Asia-Pacific Regional CSO Engagement Mechanism. There are many more accolades to her name, but I think for the purpose of today's discussion, I'm going to pass the floor over to you, Dr. Lisa.
Thank you, Lina. I'm actually a fan of both Lina and Jiro. So thank you very much for that introduction. I'm going to be making a presentation on, as Lina has said, catalyzing the recovery of social and community enterprises for transformation, which is actually our the result of the program development process that we've done since last year, when we first talked about CRESCENT as a global initiative at first. So I will be discussing both the context, objectives, and outcomes of CRESCENT, the CRESCENT Philippine Initiative, the CRESCENT Asia Pacific Initiative, which resulted from the action research, and of course, how we are going to contribute to the SDGs. So as has been pointed out already, I think it was CRESCENT was first envisioned as a global initiative so that in the last Catalyzing Change Week, as Lina was pointing out, we were exploring the possibility of a global initiative to address the multiple crises of climate, development, and health. But we ended up realizing and agreeing that we need to pilot it at the Asia Pacific and Philippine level as pilots for this global initiative. So Catalyst 2030 supported this program development process. So the overall CRESCENT program is intended to assist the recovery and repositioning of the social enterprise sector as a major player in inclusive recovery towards building back fairer and accelerating the achievement of the SDGs in the region. And we're hoping that we can start a pilot phase from now till next year, up to 2020, up to 2025 and 2026, where we are able to demonstrate social enterprises as transformational partners of the poor in the inclusive recovery plus process, in building back fairer, and in SDG acceleration. In terms of outcomes, by 2030, by 2030, we're hoping that CRESCENT would have transformed the lives and livelihoods of a significant number of people living in extreme or multidimensional poverty as stakeholders of social enterprises directly contributing to accelerating 12 of the 17 SDGs, which I will be mentioning in my last slide. We also hope that we can have a successor generation of youth engaged in social entrepreneurship, rural revitalization, and sustainable development. And this is very important because we've noted in our research that aging is actually a major issue, especially in the rural areas, even among farmers and agricultural value chain practitioners. And of course, the third outcome we want is that 50% of the stakeholders who are engaged are women in various stages of empowerment. So in terms of thematic focus, based on the action research that we had among practitioners and resource institutions in the Philippines and Asia Pacific, we came up with 4 thematic areas as focus in the Philippines. That's food security, sustainable livelihoods, digital transformation, and community-based health and wellness. Whereas in the Asia Pacific region, the action research yielded the need to focus on supporting 5 social entrepreneurship platforms for inclusive recovery, building back fairer, and accelerating the SDGs that we actually started to launch way back in 2020 during a conference that we co-convened with UNESCAP. And the 5 platforms, the thematic areas are women's empowerment, livelihoods and food in agricultural value chains, rural revitalization, youth and social entrepreneurship, decent work for all in sustainable value chains, technological innovations for sustainable development, and health for all. So in terms of, in the Philippines, CRESCENT hopes to prioritize engagements with the following poverty sectors. Mainly in the rural areas, we have the agrarian reform beneficiaries, farmers, fishers, agricultural and fishery workers, indigenous peoples. Both in the urban and rural areas, we have women workers in the informal economy, crafts communities and workers in ecocultural tourism services, and of course, the women and youth of these sectors. Of course, also the persons with disability in these poverty sectors. In terms of strategy, CRESCENT Philippines hopes to pursue a 2-pronged strategy of scaling up social enterprise-led value chains in food security and sustainable livelihoods. And the reason for this is we've noted that there are many successful social enterprise initiatives focused on food security and sustainable livelihoods, and they're actually ready to scale up even as they are facing recovery initiatives. And under this strategy, we're hoping to enable collaborative platforms in strategic economic subsectors and value chains that have market growth potential and where the poor are concentrated and could be major players. And the 3 areas of priority, 3 priorities in terms of social enterprise-led value chains that we are actually hoping to engage in CRESCENT are those engaged in sustainable agriculture and food security, particularly organic rice, organic vegetables, fisheries, and also small livestock. Agricultural value chains providing sustainable livelihoods and promoting climate-smart agriculture, as well as engage in sustainable consumption and production. And some of these include coffee, they include bamboo, also coconut, and base and essential oils. That's where Ana Meloto, who's a speaker now, is coming from in terms of value chain. And the 3rd priority social enterprise-led value chain is the non-agricultural value chains, providing sustainable livelihoods and engaged in sustainable consumption and production that were severely affected by the pandemic. And this include the craft subsector, as well as the ecotourism subsector. So in terms of the second strategy of CRESCENT in the Philippines, we're hoping that CRESCENT can enable innovations in digital transformation and community-based health and wellness initiatives. Unlike food security and sustainable livelihood initiatives that have actually been noted as ready for scaling up, we still need to do piloting and modeling in digital transformation and community-based health and wellness. No? So we're hoping that CRESCENT could actually pilot community networks and complementary connectivity initiatives that will address the digital divide to provide meaningful access to poverty sectors, to the internet and digital technology. And we're hoping that this can be linked to improving the productivity and incomes of the poor, as well as linked to social enterprise and local economic development. No? At the same time, the community-based health and wellness initiatives shall be focused on incorporating the preventive and promotive aspects of health. Many of the health initiatives are actually focused on the curative aspects, and the preventive and promotive aspects, which prevent sickness, are actually not given enough attention. And in this effort, we're hoping to link with social enterprises that are already doing food security and sustainable livelihoods, so that community-based health and wellness initiatives are not standalone, but are actually linked to sustainable livelihoods and food security. At the regional level, I've already mentioned that CRESCENT shall be focused on supporting the platforms on women, on inclusive recovery, building back fairer, and accelerating the SDGs. The women's empowerment, livelihoods, and food in agricultural value chains has actually been focused on promoting a set of guidelines and benchmarks for transformational partnerships and women's economic empowerment in agricultural value chains in Southeast Asia. And we're hoping that CRESCENT could support it to sustain not only in Southeast Asia, but go beyond Southeast Asia to South Asia and Asia Pacific. The Rural Revitalization Youth and Social Entrepreneurship Platform is focused on engaging youth so that they can be social entrepreneurs and social innovators in social enterprise development initiatives towards rural revitalization. By the way, the Women's Empowerment, Livelihoods, and Food in Agricultural Value Chains is co-convened with CICIP in Vietnam and Trubus Binasudaya in Indonesia, whereas the Rural Revitalization Youth and Social Entrepreneurship Platform is co-convened by the Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement, Rural Reconstruction Nepal, and Sources for Action in China. The third Technological Innovations for Sustainable Development Platform is co-convened by the Association of Progressive Communications and Angels of Impact. And as I said, the focus is on community networks and community-based connectivity initiatives that are linked to social enterprise and local economic development to bridge the digital divide. Decent Work for All in Sustainable Value Chains is co-convened by World Fair Trade Organization Asia and the Asia South Pacific Bureau for Adult Education. And the focus of this platform is to promote gender fair value chains, as well as fair trade, so towards sustainability. The Health for All platform is co-convened by Dompet Duafa and Sukham, Dompet Duafa in Indonesia and Sukham in India, that actually have sustainable health for all initiatives in community-based health and wellness. And so these are the 5 platforms that the CRESCENT in Asia Pacific is wanting to support. And we have a briefer that we are sharing with you in the chat box. And it describes in more detail these platforms. No? So I'm not going to spend more time here due to lack of time. But let me now go to the focus of CRESCENT Asia Pacific in terms of components. No? We're hoping to set up a social enterprise recovery and innovation fund. And the funding and the financing mechanism hopes to provide accessible hybrid financing for social enterprises. And the hybrid nature is important, which is a combination of grants and enterprise financing in the form of loans, or sometimes equity, but with responsive terms, including 0 or low interest loans. And if we're able to engage government to provide financing for social enterprise recovery and innovation, we're hoping that they can be non-collateralized loans with a guarantee fund pool. But the reason for the hybrid financing is the need for us to provide transactional and transformational services to the poor. The transformational services are those that organize and capacitate them to ensure that they're effective stakeholders of social enterprises and sustainable development initiatives. In terms of fund management, we're hoping that the Social Enterprise Recovery and Innovation Fund to be set up will be a consortium of existing resource institutions, so that we're not going to set up something new. We are going to work with existing resource institutions that have the capability to actually already provide hybrid financing. We just have to raise more funds so that they can reach more social enterprises. And maybe there can be an appropriate lead agency depending on the requirements of the fund serves. In terms of priority for financing, the Social Enterprise Recovery and Innovation Fund hopes to fund 3 types of social enterprises. First is existing social enterprises or social enterprise-led value chains needing to recover and ready to scale up or replicate, which provide sustainable livelihoods, decent work, or fair trade among the poor and marginalized. They promote food security, local food systems, and community and climate resilience. They promote sustainable consumption and production, circular economy, and climate-smart agriculture, as well as regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and fishery technologies, and of course, promote women's economic empowerment. The second set of priorities for SE financing would be those innovations in community networks, complementary connectivity initiatives, also those that could effectively engage social enterprises and their stakeholders in virtual marketplaces. So for example, in the Philippines, there's a proposal to explore the possibility of setting up a social enterprise virtual marketplace. No? And then community-based health and wellness initiatives, including the replication of successful models that combine promotive and preventive aspects, as well as improve the access of poverty sectors to quality health services. No? And as I said, in Dompet Duafa and in Suham, no, they actually have demonstrated successful community-based health and wellness initiatives, and we're wanting to look at that and other successful models. Of course, the third priority would be youth-led social enterprises, because as I said, we're wanting to engage and develop the youth as social entrepreneurs and social innovators. In terms of Social Enterprise Recovery and Innovation Fund key result areas, we have also defined key result areas among poverty groups, among social enterprises, as well as among consumers, the public, and youth, women's empowerment, and the area of sustainable consumption and production. There is a table that is actually provided for in the brief that we are sharing with you in the chat box. So I'm not going to discuss this one by one, but among poverty groups, the key result areas include increased number of poor provided sustainable livelihoods and decent work in SEs and social enterprise-led value chains, increased number and benefits of social enterprise stakeholders practicing sustainable consumption and production technologies, increased number and improved productivity and incomes of marginalized producers as supplier communities and providers of inputs and services in social enterprise-led value chains, increased access by producers and marginalized social enterprise stakeholders to safe, healthy food from diversified farms, local food systems, and sustainable agriculture and fishery-based value chains, increased capability and meaningful access to internet services by the poor, and improved health and wellness and access to quality health services by marginalized social enterprise stakeholder communities. So these are just some of the key result areas, and I'm not going to go into the details of the others, but please review the paper that we are circulating in the chat box. In terms of the second component of CRESCENT Asia Pacific, the other is a virtual hub. And of course, we will be establishing and designing a virtual hub as a knowledge portal, as a website or a web page, to serve as an e-library, to serve interactive monitoring and evaluation systems, and virtual tools and applications provision in support of the 5 platforms that I've already discussed. And we will be doing content creation and development. We will also be doing promotion and utilization of such content towards the establishment of communities of practice, capacity building and training, and maximizing virtual engagements in the process, and of course, the projection of collective impact. The last component of CRESCENT Asia Pacific is what we call Social Enterprise SDG Platform Support Services. Here, we will be providing secretariat support to the 5 social entrepreneurship SDG platforms. We will also be providing a seed fund for the Social Enterprise SDG Platform initiatives to have initial resources for action research, learning exchange and capacity building, constituency building, partnership building, and ecosystem and policy advocacy agenda building and implementation. And we will also be assisting this the social entrepreneurship SDG platforms in terms of program development and resource mobilization support. And lastly, we shall be engaging, CRESCENT shall be providing systems development for CRESCENT program and fund affiliation. So we're hoping that it's not only the CRESCENT initiated initiatives that will become part of CRESCENT, but social enterprise initiatives that are initiated elsewhere in the region and in the Philippines could also affiliate their programs and funds as contribution to inclusive recovery, building back better, and SDG acceleration. And together, with these common objectives, project collective impact as a contribution of the social enterprise sector in the Philippines and Asia Pacific to the Sustainable Development Goals. So lastly, in terms of present contributions towards inclusive recovery, building back better, and accelerating the SDGs, the 12 SDGs where we hope to contribute to are no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, reduced inequality. And then the second cluster is decent work and inclusive growth, inclusive and sustainable industrialization and innovation. The third cluster is responsible consumption and production and sustainable communities, as well as climate action. And the last is gender equality, peace, justice, and strong institutions and partnership for the goals as cross-cutting. So this is the CRESCENT initiative in the Asia Pacific and at the Philippine level. We're hoping that through this forum, we can actually get feedback from you, we can get suggestions and some initiatives towards partnership building so that we can move CRESCENT from being proposal, from being program development output to a program that could really matter to the lives of the poor and marginalized in Asia Pacific and the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lisa. That's a lot of information. And I think it's quite comprehensive in terms of looking at it from a very community-based inputs into the CRESCENT program and what it intends to impact. So for the next section, we are hoping to get some inputs from a list of panel of experts to gather reactions to what was just presented and also some kind of exploring of opportunities. So next, we're going to start with the panel discussions, and we're going to start with Anna Malota-Wilk, who's the co-founder of Gandang Kalikasan, Inc., Human Nature Philippines. I'll just give a really brief parts of her introduction, which is she's the CEO and co-founder. It's Gandang Kalikasan is actually a multi-awarded social enterprise, which she started together with her sister and her husband, based on Christian principles of justice, integrity, compassion, and stewardship. It's a champion of decent work for all and sustainable value chains, the initiatives at ISEA. It's a key partner of ISEA in pursuing the platform on women's empowerment, livelihood, and food and agricultural value chains in the Philippines. Thank you very much, Anna. Since you are familiar with ISEA and probably the CRESCENT, it'll be good to hear your input on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Dr. Lisa. And nice to meet you, Jeru, finally. I only see you in WhatsApp groups, so nice to have a face now to the name. All right, so actually I'm talking on behalf of Human Nature, which is a brand that was founded by our company, Gandang Kalikasan. So we're a 15-year-old social enterprise here in the Philippines. And the way that we're really seeing the potential with CRESCENT is through the strategic and economic subsector of the base and essential oils. I think it was part of her presentation, of Dr. Lisa's presentation, because our brand Human Nature is actually creating and marketing natural and organic beauty and personal care products. So that's what we've been doing for the past 15 years. So we see a very big market potential for this industry. So our counterpart actually in the traditional business is the fast-moving consumer goods. So our key competitors are Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and the distribution channels where we are in are also where they're at. So in terms of really seeing the market potential, wherein there is sustainability for the business and also a big potential to create impact, then it's there. It checks that box. But also in terms of partnerships with the communities and them being a major stakeholder and valuable contributor to CRESCENT, that it's also been established because we've been partnering with communities since 14 years ago. So we source our coconut oils, essential oils, other raw materials that we convert into the beauty and personal care products from local communities. So we've been working with several communities for more than a decade now. And we've seen also how there's really so much room for growth, but there needs to be a lot of development in the sector because there's really no consolidated effort to have a plan, a roadmap for the base and essential oils so that we can service big potential of the market that we're seeing. And also there's a lot of communities that wanting to plug in into this industry, but really finding that it's very challenging because we need to multiply more of the social enterprises that bridge the farm to market kind of divide that we're seeing. In terms of the past 3 years with COVID, we've really done our best to practice sustainable consumption and production, more so in terms of really meeting the SDG of responsible consumption and production by maintaining our relationships with our supplier communities, even when we were badly affected by COVID. I mean, sales really tumbled in double digits. And for a time, Lisa knows this, a lot of the SEs here in the Philippines were just in survival mode. In fact, some had to close down temporarily or suspend operations in order to protect their employees and continue to support the communities. The other priority that we had was, of course, being able to provide a living wage and dignified employment for a lot of our employees. We have now 600 employees, more than half of which are what we would consider part of the urban working poor. They used to be from the informal sectors, but since they've been part of Human Nature. And Lisa's group also did an impact study on us in 2018, where they were able to determine that 88% of our employees who used to be from the poor were now free of debt. They've been able to also meet all of their basic needs, and some of them have moved up also in terms of being able to have college graduates in the next generation, and all of these really measurable impacts. So it is very important for us to still keep our people employed, even though the revenue wasn't coming in. So the 2023 plans, this we see it as a recovery year. So if we can get support for CRESCENT, we would really be interested to see how the region and the global community can work together to come up with ways to support social enterprises who have really stuck to their values and their commitment to push forward the SDG goals, because I really see a huge kind of movement and growth already, especially in our industry, the fast-moving consumer goods, cosmetics industry, and there's a lot of, I would say, disruption that the SE sector can make, because if left to, our own devices in this industry, we will just pursue the profit bottom line. But there's social goals that we need to meet as well. And if we don't kind of intervene and say that, okay, we're going to engage and not leave behind the farming communities, because it's so easy to just develop products that the market will want, but doesn't really include ingredients or inputs that include the poor or include the communities, because there are other sources for raw materials, there are other sources for labor, there are other sources for other inputs that can really meet the profit bottom line, but disregard the social bottom line. So I hope that through CRESCENT we can really push for the development of these strategic economic subsectors, not just in the base and essential oils, but all in the other identified subsectors that will come up through the action research, so that we can keep pushing for the living wage, community sourcing, local research and development, so that everyone can be part of the inclusive growth that we're seeing now in the post-pandemic era. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's always good to hear the realities on the ground, and many of the social enterprises we worked with have very similar experiences. So thanks for sharing your perspectives of how CRESCENT could play a role there. I'm just going to take a quick pause here because I believe Goma had suggested we do a photo before Anna and John has to leave. So if everybody would be okay, can you turn on your videos so that we can just take a quick shot of this amazing moment of all of us together? Goma?
Thank you, Lina. I'd ask the team to actually click. Vance, if you can assist. Thank you.
Okay, let's just wait for a few seconds. Okay.
Yes, we have more people. Okay.
Okay, let's take a picture. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. One more, we have 2 pages. 1, 2, 3, smile. Just for back up, another one. Okay.
Hold your smiles, guys.
1, 2, 3. Next page. Last one. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Back to you, Lina.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now we go to a regional perspective from John Samuel, who's the regional director of Oxfam in Asia. Again, I'm going to give a summarized version of his background. He's an international development practitioner with more than 30 years of experience in organizational leadership, humanitarian action, sustainable development, public policy, and advocacy. He's been in senior leadership roles in the United Nations and several international development organizations, and a leadership mentor, civil society and social movement, social entrepreneur, and human rights activist in India and internationally. Over to you, John. You're on mute.
Thank you very much. And it's such a pleasure to be with all of you and in this important meeting called CRESCENT. And also I wanted to congratulate the ISEA and ISEA colleagues. Particularly, I want to thank Lisa for taking initiative to send me all the material. So it's such a pleasure. On behalf of Oxfam, I just wanted to congratulate all of you. And we consider you as a great partner in our effort to encourage women's entrepreneurships, especially in the area of agriculture and, empowerment, economic empowerment of women. So you know that one of the best regional programs of Oxfam is called ISEA. This is basically about gender empowerment and economic empowerment. And I had opportunities to visit many countries, and I was very, very happy to see women entrepreneurs from different parts of Asia coming together. Recently, we had a very important meeting with private sector engagement. And in this also, we had women from all over the world. So, and Oxfam value these partnerships. so much. And I think we are all living in a very particular transition period of history. As a social entrepreneur, established more than 10 or 15 organizations, including women's cooperative and number of those things. I mean, this is apart from my, parallel career in the UN, ActionAid or Oxfam and international. I still work with lots of entrepreneurs in India. I'm very happy to see Jeru. She may not remember me. I remember her Bombay days. So very, very happy to see Jeru after a long time.
It's nice to have you here. So
Yeah.
really nice.
So, I used to be in Pune for many years when she was in Mumbai. So this is after so many years we are meeting here. So there are 3 or 4 points which I wanted to make. The first point which I made yesterday to women humanitarian leaders, from 80 of them are in Bangkok. I was there. The most important thing in the history of development is the transformative leadership role played by women across Asia. And actually Asia made a big difference, whether it is in the area of microfinance, the area of micro enterprise, or in the area of medium and social enterprise. I come from a state in India called Kerala, where the largest women's group called Kudumbasri has around 4.5 million women members, and amazing social entrepreneurs, in terms of they have regenerated agriculture in a big way, and not only nutritious food but also agriculture in the larger sense, vegetable, paddy. And also I've seen that in terms of other entrepreneurships, small IT firms to support, this is amazing. I have seen it in significant way. So what is the lesson we learned from Bangladesh, India, across? For example, Self-Employed Women's Association India, SEWA, has been one of those pioneers in this area of social entrepreneurships, organizing women who were self-employed, and also establishing bank empowerment. So India has so much of to learn, India and Bangladesh particularly, for how women transform not only business but also transform livelihood. In the case of Kerala, transform politics in a significant way. So that is the first thing. The only way to transform human development, or if you talk about sustainable development, even SDG, can only be happening with the transformative leadership for role of women. And there's no doubt about it. And that's why for Oxfam, our work on gender justice, and economic justice, both of them that interface. One of our most important area of work in almost all the countries is economic empowerment of women. And that requires a lot of, support. And the second thing is, COVID was a great disruptor in terms of market business. I myself have seen it, in the kind of women's collective where I've been still working in Kerala, in Bodhigram. We had around 800 women members of the saving and credit group, our agriculture cooperatives, and all of them. That has come down to 200. It's not that, they were not interested. There were lots of other things, and we have created, during COVID, we created, mass making initiative, etc. But people were, most of the women were the caregivers in their own household. So the second thing it's important to understand is the whole issue of care economy, which is not even recognized. So self-employed women are not even often recognized as entrepreneurs. Lots of them are there, lots, actually millions. So that's the policy initiative. Women's work needs to be recognized, celebrated, documented, etc. The third area of work is, the leadership role. I think, and this economic leadership as well as political participation is very important for women's, social entrepreneurship and empowerment. If it is not there, so it's because we have seen, this is also my lessons, many people, and yesterday I said about, my own experience of humanitarian action, flood relief, etc. The best work was done was in the local governments where women were the leaders. They were more participatory, more empathetic, less, myopic, etc. So I think this is very important, that women's political participation and women's economic participation has a connection, and that's very important to recognize. The fourth point I wanted to make is about the resources, impact investment. The most important, the earlier, if you really look at Seva or Mirada or all the microfinance enterprises, including, Grameen Bank, there was a huge investment by, I remember, both in Grameen Bank or BRAC, there was a huge investment by Oxfam in the very beginning. So there is a need for what I call resources, sustained resources. And sometimes, these resources is not only for impact investment, but even contingency resources are very important, because, COVID has shown that there is more need to invest. And this is my own experience, because unless there is a conscious effort, and this also means, the last but not the least, we need to do an international influencing effort to for the donors, right from the multilateral donors, whether it is UNDP or UN Women, or non-state actors like Oxfam or ActionAid, or all of them needs to invest in women's economic empowerment and leadership. Invest not only in terms of leadership capacities and organizational capacities, but also investment money. And without that, nothing can be done. I wanted to sum up saying that unless there is a overall reimagination and recovery in the post-COVID scenario, and post-COVID scenario is, what we have seen dramatically in Sri Lanka, 20 or 30 years of work was just disappeared within months. So it's very important to understand what really happened in Sri Lanka and what's really happening in, I just came from Vietnam, I'm just going to Bangladesh. The thing is, there is inflation, there is underemployment, there is less value for agriculture produce. So there is an economic crisis looming in a big way. And this way, in terms of, we are talking about SDG 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all of them are connected. And without that SDG 5, you cannot have 1, 2, 3. And hence, if you want to reduce poverty, the new forms of poverty, there has to be a more investment in women's economic leadership at the grassroots, because it's about livelihood. And that livelihood, whether it is micro enterprise or small enterprise or medium enterprise, this puts food in the plate. And that's very, very important to understand. For if you want to fight hunger, if you want to fight poverty, if you want to achieve health and education, gender equality is fundamental, and that's why SDG 5 is fundamental. And then if you look at SDG 8 and 9, employment, this is also where it's very important. So I just wanted to say that Oxfam is very much committed to work with ISEA as well as CRESCENT, both as partners, also to learn. I would also like to take this message forward. Actually, we are trying to find resources. As you know, that this big program, which has been running for 8 years, with the liberal support from Swedish government, it has come to an end. But our work on economic empowerment will continue, and we are trying to raise more resources towards that in Asia. So we are very, very happy to continue these relationships, both as partners, but also as learners. And because these times we need more than anything solidarity. We need solidarity across our countries in Asia, but also we need solidarity across the world. So with those things, I would like to once again express gratitude for this opportunity. And also I wanted to say that Oxfam will be happy to connect with all of you. And we really look forward to learn from you and also listen to you and to work together with all of you. Thank you very much.
Valaranani, I was going to say. I was going to ask you if you're from Kerala, actually. Thank you very much for
If you're
that.
from Kerala, I will tell a Kerala story always. If you're a Malayali.
Yes, I'm from Kerala, yeah.
Yeah.
My takeaway from what you say is very much in resonance with the work that I do at Angels of Impact, because we basically also take the theory of change that you cannot tackle poverty without putting gender equality at the pivot. That is the most important connecting point. You can't get one without the other. So thank you for underscoring that. And I think we will be able to take that feedback into the work of CRESCENT as well. I understand you can't stay long, but I hope you can stay a little bit to hear some of the other panelists. Next, we have Rini Suprihartanti, who is the Vice Chairperson of BASNES and Forum Zakat. She's a practitioner of Islamic philanthropy, especially in Zakat management, with more than 25 years of experience. Rini has dedicated herself in work in social and humanitarian fields through expertise in management systems, program innovation, finance, accounting of Zakat, social entrepreneurship, and Islamic finance, microfinance. She's also the vice chair from 2019 to 2024 for social value to Indonesia, chairperson at and also involved very much in ISEA. So with that, I'm going to invite Rini.
Okay, thank you, Laina. Nice to see you again in Zoom again. Hope can we see in the offline meeting. Okay, thank you for inviting me to be a panelist in this forum. And first, I would like to express my appreciation to the ISEA, Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, for the continuous effort in promoting social entrepreneurship and also for organizing this event. I've been invited to this forum to provide a perspective in managing on expertise in managing Islamic philanthropy, where in Indonesia, the management of Islamic philanthropy is managed by the government and also by the civil society. So by the law, Zakat is an obligatory alms, is a mandate managed by government, but the civil society can manage accredited by government. Before joining to the government, I was an activist in Zakat in the civil society. Of course, I will talk in the relationship of the social enterprise development with the Islamic philanthropy. And in Indonesia, Islamic philanthropy is deeply ingrained in our culture and society. zakat is an obligatory alms, and infak and wakaf is a voluntary alms, are important pillars of our faith, in Islamic faith, and they provide strong mechanism for individuals to give back to their communities and support social issues. This religious factor is a strong factor that has made Indonesia named the most generous country in the world by the according to the World Giving Index published by CEF, Charity Aid Foundation. This is also supported because philanthropy in Indonesia has successfully metamorphosed into a modern philanthropy organization in raising, managing, and utilizing religious donation, as well as contributing to this achievement. And there are many innovations how to distribute and also in utilizing fund, and also how to raise the fund from the public through the now in the digital platform, and many other form of how to raise from the public and how to distribute and utilize. And of course, one of the innovation how to distribute is through the social entrepreneurship development. And with the digitalization, the donation segmentation also extend to young people who are very friendly with digital platforms. So based on experience and data, philanthropy in Indonesia has always grown well year to year, even during times of crisis, both economic crisis and COVID pandemic. So based on our research that during COVID pandemic, the philanthropic fund also still keep the rise from the year prior year. And in Islamic philanthropy, we have three main types of funds, namely zakat, infak, and endowment fund. Zakat, this is the obligatory alms, have been channeled for the development in the social entrepreneurship in Indonesia through our various initiatives. One example in the productive zakat program that encourage the use of zakat funds for productive purposes, including supporting the development of social entrepreneurs. The program provides funding and other support to social enterprises in areas such as education, health, and agriculture, helping to build their capacity and drive positive social impact. So there are some of organizations utilize their fund of zakat through SE development. They build just like hospital for the needy, clinics for the needy, school for the needy, who manage as a social enterprise. And in the voluntary donations, just like infak and wakaf, also been used to support the development of social enterprises in Indonesia. For example, just like Lisa mentioned before, that Dompet Duafa as part of the platform of the CRESCENT have established just like microfinance and then hospital and then area, just like in education and also in the agriculture. So the empowerment of the farmer also in the terms of as a community enterprise or as a social enterprise. And some organizations also combine the three of funds between zakat, infak, and wakaf when they develop SE. Because social enterprise in the zakat, in the philanthropic, Islamic philanthropy organization in Indonesia, there are many other of types. As a social enterprise who owned by the Islamic philanthropy organization, or the fund is for developing the social enterprise in the level of community. So the community as a beneficiaries include or involved in the supply chain and the social enterprise who owned by Islamic philanthropy organization, or SES owned by the community or in the community enterprise. And some organizations combine the three of the kind of funds. Wakaf. Wakaf is like endowment fund. Wakaf is the people can donate assets or money but this is for the long-term management or investment. So when just like in the context of how to build the in healthcare, maybe just like hospital, Islamic philanthropy build the building and the equipment is from wakaf. But in the operational, how to deliver the benefit for the poor, for the needy, is come from the zakat and infak sodako. And in the context of CRESCENT, I believe that there are several opportunities for leveraging Islamic philanthropy to support social enterprise recovery and innovation. For example, Islamic philanthropy organization could provide targeted support to social enterprises working in key areas such as healthcare, education, and environmental sustainability. They could also provide for innovation and research, helping to drive the development of new solutions to complex social and environmental challenges. However, there may be also challenges to effectively leveraging Islamic philanthropy in this context. Maybe there are lack of awareness of understanding of social enterprise among Islamic philanthropy organizations, because not all of Islamic philanthropy organizations are already aware about the social entrepreneurship. And also maybe a lack of coordination and collaboration between this organization and social enterprises. And also there may be challenges related to the regulatory and legal framework governing the use of zakat, infak, and wakaf fund. As you may know that in Indonesia, zakat, infak, and wakaf, we operate by the law. Zakat and in the management of zakat, we have certain law, and management of wakaf, we have also a speed of law. So not just a regulation from government, but also, of course, in the Sharia or Islamic law. So I think this is the challenges, how to do the Islamic philanthropy fund can support to the social enterprise development in the recovery and the context of CRESCENT. Even while they still maximizing their impact, can be a delicate balancing or etc. Multi-stakeholder collaboration, I think, can be the key to unlocking the full potential of Islamic philanthropy in supporting social and community enterprises. Collaboration between government, private sector, civil society, and the social enterprise sector can help drive innovation, create sustainable impact, and build more inclusive and resilient communities. As we work towards accelerating the achievement of the SDGs, it is essential that we embrace a collaborative, multi-stakeholder approach that harnesses the power of Islamic philanthropy and social entrepreneurship. And CRESCENT is an important initiative that can help to catalyze this collaboration and drive positive social impact in the Asia Pacific region and beyond. Of course, the Islamic philanthropy is not the potential in Indonesia, but I think in around the in Asia Pacific, who has the Muslim community, and of course not maybe not just as Islamic philanthropy, because maybe there are also the philanthropy fund not just from the Islamic philanthropy. By bringing together stakeholders from across sectors and regions, CRESCENT can help foster innovation, build capacity, and drive positive change. I'm excited about the potential of this initiative, and maybe we can look forward to working with other analysts and participants in Export. And in conclusion, that I believe that Islamic philanthropy has a critical role to play in supporting social entrepreneurship development and driving positive social impact, because this is the very big potential actually in especially in Indonesia. Yeah, Indonesia is the most generous country, and then the most people in the most Muslim in the world, and year by year the fund from Islamic philanthropy increased, and now it's already open-minded to the zakat institution or Islamic philanthropic institution in the social entrepreneurship development. Even many organizations still has not really aware or not really know about the social entrepreneurship, and maybe and other challenges is also because zakat is the religious fund or Islamic philanthropic fund who has the certain beneficiaries under the Sharia or Islamic law. We have in zakat we have 8 categories to distribute who have a right to distribute to these beneficiaries. But if I look to the, just like in the CRESCENT, there are many goals of SDGs. I think this is the most of the program or the goals of SDGs is maybe the beneficiaries on the stakeholders in the level of the community is the can be as categorized as one or in the 8 categories of zakat. Yeah. Also in if fact is more flexible, and in wakaf is like endowment fund. So people donate, and then the Islamic organization, Islamic philanthropy organization have to invest and have to they manage, and the manage from the fund have has a return, and the return from the wakaf management goes to the beneficiaries. Yeah. So there's the combination of maybe in the social enterprise there are in the initial investment come from the wakaf, but for the delivery, maybe if we have the social enterprise have and agriculture, we can put zakat and infak in the level of community as a grant to empower. But the level of social enterprise, we can put as wakaf as capital, because we hope that this enterprise can have a profit, but the profit from wakaf not goes to the owner, because wakaf, infak, and zakat not belong to the owners, the people or the organization. The owner of the benefit, the return of the wakaf is have to be goes to the beneficiaries. Yeah, so the zakat and infak distribute directly to the beneficiaries, but wakaf we have to manage, and then the surplus on the return of the wakaf we places to the beneficiaries. So that's in our perspective for the social enterprise development and the Islamic philanthropy. And in Indonesia, we already doing this in many organizations, just like in Dompet Duafa. There, Dompet Duafa has many social enterprise owned by Dompet Duafa and in the level of community, and many organizations also doing that. And me and at Basnas also doing this in the level of community. We provide social enterprise development for the just like for the disability with the many programs. Thank you. I think again through multi-stakeholder collaboration and initiatives as CRESCENT, we can build more inclusive and resilient communities, accelerate progress towards the SDGs, and create a better future for all. Thank you, Laina. Back to you.
Terima kasih banyak.
Sama-sama.
Yeah, I think it was very fascinating also towards the end when you were sharing with the terms of which you lend it out and how the profit goes back to the community as opposed to So a lot of that is actually very much in line with some of the work that we're doing around restorative investing as well, that making sure that the wealth remains with the community, that people get out of poverty as opposed to the investors getting richer from it. So there's a lot that we can learn, I think, from this. So thank you for sharing your perspectives. Next, last but not least, we have Ms. Rosalind Len Messina. She's the UN Women's Philippines Program Manager for We Empower Asia and UN Women. She's a program, if I got it right, a program promoting women's economic empowerment through private sector engagement, entrepreneurship, and adaptation of implementation of women's empowerment principles at various levels. She's a development worker with over 20 years of experience, focused mainly on advancing women's issues and causes, someone close to my heart. Prior to joining UN Women, she was the project lead for Women in the C-Suite project in the Makati Business Club that looked into factors affecting women's leadership in the corporate setting, and consultant to Commission on Human Rights, women's gender equality, and many others. I think, again, another speaker who's got a lot of accolades. I'm just giving you abbreviated version. So on to you, Len.
Thank you, Laina. Actually, the role right now is updated already. So at the moment, I'm the country program coordinator for UN Women, meaning I support and really try orchestrate the different programming initiatives of UN Women in the Philippines. But prior to that, I am country program manager for We Empower Asia, which a lot of my sort of insights and sharing would really be based upon, because the work that we've done in the last 3 years, I think, is really a great opportunity where we could learn how the CRESCENT initiative could also be built upon, especially keeping really the heart of it, which is the social goals and the intention to make sure we bring into the center those who are at the margins. So first, thank you to all those who really made the case why it's so important for us to now make women at the center of all different development efforts and initiatives. This is what we've been continuously sort of advocating for, saying that we need to make sure women are very, very much made as part of any initiative and any concrete programming, because they have huge contributions that we are still unable to fully enjoy and utilize up to this point. So from the different studies we are seeing, and we've been also sharing in different platforms, that when we try to address the gender gap in terms of, labor force participation, a huge $4.5 trillion would be gained by the Asia Pacific region if and when we are able to provide that opportunity for women. And what are we missing out in terms of these opportunities, or why are still there issues and concerns linked to women's participation both in the productive areas and also in the business community? We continuously see that they are primarily seen still at the very vulnerable sectors and informal sectors for that matter, continuous unpaid care work, which hold them back to participate and to really commit to either being fully employed or agree to be underemployed or agree to be part-time workers or agree to be non-paid workers because they don't think they will be able to assert a certain amount of money that they need to receive or that they deserve, because priority for them is looking after their families and their children and the care responsibility. We also see that there's still underrepresentation in leadership. That's why when John mentioned that we need to now really continuously promote and encourage more leadership in the community, I think that also needs to go not just at the community level, social enterprises level, but also in the in the public sector and as well as in the corporate spaces for that matter. Sexual harassment and gender-based violence continue to also hamper their participation. They would be present at this time, they would be absent the next day because of internal issues being victims of domestic violence by their partners. We also see that in terms of the space in technology and innovation, women still lack representation in that area. So why do we always have to premise that there's still a lot of work we need to do to achieve the equality we hope to enjoy, because these are where we are seeing the gaps, and these are, I think, where the Crescent initiative could also immediately contribute with a clear intention to provide and to promote decent jobs and sustainable livelihoods for those at the margins. And we would like to now make the case that in terms of targeting, that we are very clear and we very mindful that women are all in the spaces where you wanna, deliver the intervention or the initiative. Why is this the case? The pandemic really has, I think, we all know that brought us back to several years back in terms of gains, whether that's in the development side or whether that's in the economic side or even in the gender equality side. We've seen decrease in terms of women's labor force participation from 2020 to 2021. And we also are seeing very small number of women, represented or counted in the agri-fishery sector, and a lot of it really are, in the unpaid family or under the unpaid family workers category. So we are seeing a lot of the contracts, a lot of the work are being given to head of the households or family members, but those head of the households would sort of get and receive support from others who belong in the same household to be able to deliver on their commitments and on their projects. So this is where we also see the gap in that space. So what do we want to do and where do we want to bring this forward? So social entrepreneurship, I think, is really a big place where we can highlight these issues and the nuancing in terms of the concerns when it comes to women's work, women's unpaid care work, women's representation, and women's leadership for that matter, including also those who are vulnerable and marginalized. We have promoted in the last 3 years the opportunity for different business communities, business owners, corporate organizations for that matter, the adoption of the women's empowerment principles. And I think this is where we also would like to encourage even the social enterprises to be part of that community, because being part of that community would allow social enterprises and also allow the opportunity to revisit how every effort and every initiative would be able to promote women's empowerment and gender equality for that matter. So in the 7 women's empowerment principles, these are clustered in 4 key areas where we would really encourage leadership commitment to promote gender equality in their business operations, whether that's a social enterprise or that's privately owned business enterprise or a corporate multinational or international corporation for that matter. Second is really ensuring that there are safe spaces and workplaces, and that health and well-being of employees are also looked into, which I know is something of a challenge for small-scale businesses, especially those starting up or those at the community level. But this is where we also are seeing high traction in terms of innovation to provide access to these kinds of services by small players in the fintech industry when it comes to access to health protection or social protection in that space. The third area is where we also see the importance of connecting with the different supply chain members, and this is where we see that the social entrepreneurs would be able to provide that kind of lens to the bigger businesses who they will be dealing with or who you will be dealing with, to educate them further, to make them aware about how they can improve their bottom line when it comes to the social goals and social component, and not just the economic or the business bottom line of it. And the last portion for the women's empowerment principles is trying to really document and report these things and these initiatives, and sharing that through learning sessions or through being very open in the reporting part. So that's the promoting the women's empowerment principles, and where we see CRESCENT initiative and the social enterprises who would be part of it would also benefit from being part of the bigger community, because that's where I think would be a good place for us to also access wider market and wider wide the bigger market buyers, for that matter. I don't know how to call them, I just missed that term. So that's the aspect in terms of reaching out and being part of a bigger community, learning from the different stakeholders and different actors. Second, I want to also point out the importance of being very mindful about access, participation, representation, and access to different opportunities and different support that the women need to also have. I know that we are very, very well intentioned when we would always mention women's empowerment and the targets to have women stakeholders to be at this certain percentage. But we also want to really encourage all of us to be mindful and to keep track about what is keeping our women social entrepreneurs, or women employed by social entrepreneurs for that matter, from continuing to be part of it, from continuing to really do it and understand what other support system should be made available to them. And this is where we're seeing the care work burden really is also becoming one of their key issues, that nobody would look after their children, even if the work is just within the community, or they do not have access to enough capital so that they can increase their supply or they can increase their production. And several studies have shown that women entrepreneurs or women social entrepreneurs would tend to refuse to borrow money or to loan, and they don't want to be held captive in certain terminologies and conditions that we also need to be aware about. Last, I think I would want to also mention about the opportunity that we as UN Women are also looking into in terms of promoting gender responsive procurement in the private sector and in the public sector for that matter. We're seeing that the government or the public sector is really a big buyer, a big institutional buyers that we could also target to work with or to engage with. And this is where we are now trying to convene several conversations how the procurement process could also be made available and could also be made flexible to welcome social entrepreneurs and to welcome MSMEs for that matter. Last, I think is also last promise is finding ways to link the initiatives of the social entrepreneurs to various local government units. And I think this is where we could now utilize the resources coming from the various local government units who are intending to also promote sustainable livelihoods and steer economic development and economic recovery activities in their own localities. And I hope that the CRESCENT initiative would be able to really rally certain local government units, because I know it could really be daunting task to involve everyone, but to be very strategic in trying to understand which local government units could be best engaged, so that there could also be an opportunity for counterparting in terms of resourcing and opportunity for them to support in terms of market access, support, and even logistics facilitation and provision of shared service facilities that they could also provide or offer to our social entrepreneurs who would be part of the initiative. I think that's all from my end for now, and happy to interact more later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Len. So I guess you raised many points that I resonate with in my work with Angels of Impact as well. Some, for example, you're talking about women not wanting to take money. There's trauma as well that's behind that, and we need to be aware of that. But if I were to take a takeaway, Dr. Lisa, between what was said by John and what is said by Len, I think the key argument here is that women have to be front and center at everything, as opposed to 50% representation women or women's economic empowerment in one platform. I think the case has been made loud and clear here that women have to be front and center there. So shall we open up the floor, or shall I, Dr. Lisa, do you want to say something in reaction to the different panelists before we open for the open forum?
No, I think, Lina, we would like to have the open forum so that we can actually interact with the participants. But thank you to the panelists. I think we have gotten a lot of insights from various perspectives, no, from a practitioner's perspective, from Anna, from a resource institution from John, and then from a multilateral institution from Len, and also from an Islamic philanthropy management organization from government's perspective, and also the Zakat Philanthropy Network in Indonesia. Yeah? So I think we have had a lot of rich insights, and thank you for those. And I'd like to give back the floor to you, Lina, and maybe interact with the
so we have a question here more than an input. Hema, would you like to ask the question yourself, or you want me to read out your question?
Hello. You can read, or you can read, or whatever you want.
You go ahead, since you have the floor now. You can ask your question.
Okay. Namaste, everybody. It's very nice presentation to all of you, and it's a very good opportunity to all of us to know about more about the social entrepreneurship and other things like that. So I'm just wondering about the green entrepreneurship. Nowadays, most of the organization, green economy and green entrepreneurship. So is it the difference between any difference between the social entrepreneurship and green entrepreneurship, or is it same? I'm just wondering to know about if it is a difference, and what would be the differences in between them. So if anybody can answer it, so it will be better to me. Yeah.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Actually, of course, social entrepreneurship is defined in different ways, yeah. But from the perspective of us, social enterprise resource institutions and social entrepreneurs that are working in developing countries, we look at social entrepreneurship as addressing poverty, inequality, and sustainability, yeah. Whereas green entrepreneurship is dealing more with, engagement to ensure that environmental destruction doesn't happen. No? So I think social entrepreneurship, in a sense, is broader and it's deeper than green entrepreneurship. Of course, there's always the question about greenwashing, yeah. When many companies and many initiatives that are promising to be environmentally and environment friendly are really not doing that, right? In social entrepreneurship, we try to look at the connection between social and environmental impact and ensure that the poor and marginalized are stakeholders in sustainable development, no? Or even a green economy. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lisa. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. It's clear now.
Very clear answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Would anybody else like to contribute? We're really looking for your feedback, solutions about what has been presenting about CRESCENT. Would anyone like to take the floor? Maybe I could call on some people. I notice some familiar names here. Swapan, would you like to say something? Or even Vi? Swapan's there. There you go.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you here. Well, I am just listening. This time I am not prepared to do anything. Anyway, thank you very much. It's nice to be with you, all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I do recognize some names. If anybody wants to speak, just either just unmic yourself and talk, or put up your hand, or put a question in the chat. It might be interesting to hear some social enterprises. I see Boat Central is here. Vi, would you like to, I don't know if you're in a position, I know most of the time you're out there with the farmers, so you don't always be able to take the floor. Are you there? Vi? Okay. Any other inputs from people? There she is. Hello.
I just
What
had
do
to
you
transfer to a better site.
Okay, got it. Any feedback, solutions, challenges, opportunities, excitement?
Well, here in the Philippines, it is really a challenge to present the concept of CRESCENT. It is big. It is we have to do a lot of leveraging so that we will be more relevant to the people that we really want to reach out to. But I think it will still take time. But I never lose hope. We, as a social entrepreneur, Doc Lisa knows this, I will always support and be a face that they can use, be the voice that people can hear and listen to, and hope that we can really make changes and present these changes, not just for us, but to mainstream the changes that we want to happen. That's it, coming from a social entrepreneur experience.
How do you see the kind of funding? Because Dr. Lisa also did talk a little bit deeply about hybrid forms of financing, right? And then Len also mentioned about how a lot of social enterprises are hesitant to take capital. What are some of your thoughts about what CRESCENT should be looking at?
Well, I was one of those who pushed for the hybrid.
Okay.
I do believe in playing always middle ground. I was one of the first ones who said that we should have some hybrid financing. Okay. You know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes sense for most social enterprises because there's an element which is really community empowerment, capacity building, etc., which is quite separate from running the business and the capital that you need, right? So it's definitely a way to go.
It's a way to go.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you. Lennon, would you like to comment about some of the aspects of the CRESCENT Fund and how you see maybe an organization like UN Women supporting these efforts?
We've been really looking at how to sort of set up or layer and understand the kind of financing support that needs to go to different levels of social enterprises. And what I think would really need to have is the opportunity to assess the kind of resourcing or funding that each would need depending on where they are, because some would be startups with very good potential, very good ideas that we can support. Some are in that middle setup already, which they are neither small neither big, but they don't know where to go and they don't know where to place themselves in terms of accessing certain financing. And some would really need bigger support because they're at that stage already, but nobody seemed to see them because they're not in the wider space. Lots of conversations I think would need to happen still, and I hope that we can really get together sometime soon on that level, because access to financing, financial inclusion, not just for the social entrepreneurs but their employees and those who are part of the enterprise, are also critical, because what we're hearing, it's a challenge as well for them who have not been earning as much, now earning good, but are also not being able to sustain and keep them, and setting expectations that are so difficult to sort of keep. And I think that's the kind of discussion we also would wanna be able to introduce to different groups and communities for that matter. Lina, I'm sure you have heard several initiatives happening here in the Philippines when it comes to really having safe conversations around financing, especially for women entrepreneurs and women social entrepreneurs for that matter. And I feel we still need to continue to provide that space for them because it's a very different game for them when it comes to trying to access these resources, and they need a lot of support, not because they're not capable, but because there's a lot of challenges in the system that are not yet meant to recognize the different situations and contexts of the women entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs like Vi for that matter. So would be happy to, play a convening part if that would really contribute to have stakeholders who are critical to have in these conversations for a more fruitful discussion for that matter. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's what we found as well, is that there is a spectrum from the startup, the missing middle to the bigger ones. But I think two key points also that we have to keep in mind is that number one, we're talking about poverty alleviation here. And we're talking about poverty alleviation. We want to make sure that the social enterprises also have a model that enables their communities to get out of those. So for example, somebody who's just buying and selling is not necessarily the same as someone who's actually working with the community, like Vi, for example. She's out there working on the ground and making sure that the communities are benefiting, right? And unfortunately, the so-called traditional impact investors are not necessarily interested in poverty alleviation. And there's actually a report from the monitor group called From Blueprint to Scale that clearly indicated that. And then we have on top of that, the fact that you've indicated women are key to ending poverty. There is the unconscious bias when money is concerned to women. So that double element is probably another reason it would be good for CRESCENT to fill, because that intersectionality of funding companies in poverty, as well as those empowering women, not just in terms of beneficiaries, but leadership, is definitely a gap that needs to be filled. Yeah. Anything else?
May I say something about?
Yeah, absolutely.
May I jump into the conversation? Because I think one of the things that Anna picked up, I think, from the presentation that I made was the subsector and value chain approach.
Yeah.
In order to scale up what they're doing. Because I think on one hand, while there are startups and those who are not necessarily knowing where to go, there's actually social enterprises that have reached a level where they are successful, but they need a more strategic thinking and planning, looking at the whole value chain so that they can actually assist the development of supplier communities in a significant way, and to look at how they can actually serve markets in a more significant way. Yeah. And I think the idea of CRESCENT during the first 3 years is also to look at those social enterprises that are already actually at that point where they can scale up, but they need more support in terms of ensuring that supplier communities and markets, cohere. And to do that, actually, we've found that we need resources for strategic planning. Yeah. And so CRESCENT is going to try to provide resources to do strategic planning for these value chains that can actually make an impact on big numbers of the poor. No? So we're not just talking about social enterprises serving 50, 100 workers, right? But really maybe value chains that can actually reach out to more poor if we can only do that strategic thinking and planning necessary to scale up. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that we're wanting to introduce, and maybe in relation to the engagement we've had with UN Women. Remember, Lenlen, we have actually partnered on providing tools such as the benchmarks for transformational partnerships and women's economic empowerment in agricultural value chains. And that actually is a tool for planning, monitoring, and evaluation to make sure that women's empowerment, not only women entrepreneurs, right, but actually women in the grassroots are included, or not only included, but are empowered to become stakeholders of value chains and economic subsectors, right? So in that sense, I think CRESCENT is ambitious, and we're hoping that we can work with institutions like UN Women, Oxfam, also Islamic philanthropy, yeah, and of course social entrepreneurs like Anna, but she's representing one of the economic subsectors, right? But there are also other social entrepreneurs who are here in the call, like Bote Central, no? They're very much engaged in the coffee subsector, and they're already in more than 50 plus supplier communities, right? And community-based coffee enterprises in those communities. Of course, you have fair trade organizations in the craft subsector and in sustainable agriculture, where SOPAN is, yeah? And they actually are, many of these social enterprises are ready to scale and create more impact, no? So while we assist the startups, I think it's also important that we look at what can be scaled up in CRESCENT. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess for us, for example, we take that in our consideration already as to who is a startup we work with, right? So we do look, for example, not just the aggregate numbers of the social enterprises they work with, but when we talk about value chain, we're actually also looking at how they help the smaller entrepreneurs or the smaller individuals go up the value chain. So for example, are you helping them? Like, for example, Boat Central is a good example, right? She's got her coffee roasters, because if you can roast the coffee, you go up the value chain versus just selling the beans. So yes, definitely if those factors can be added, then the impact can be multiplied a lot quicker and faster as well. Yeah. Anna, would you like to add anything after having heard the other presentations?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to weigh in also on the extra challenge. I don't know if it's new, but with women, it's really a lot of support, because we've been trying to also do that for our own communities and our employees. As Miss Messina was talking about the challenges, right? And, a lot of the unpaid work. So a lot of it centers around the responsibilities in the family. That's why some of the programs that we've come up with were daycare centers in our communities, and also daycare, long form daycare for our employees, so they can bring their children to work at 8 o'clock, and then they clock out, and they also bring their kids. But then that really entails more investment, because we've had to hire our own early childhood development staff to ensure that the children are well taken care of, and not just that, it's not just child minding, but really giving them a strong start. Our goal was really, that by the time they enter big school, that some of the gaps that they might have had because of some challenges in, prenatal care and even in infancy could have been bridged. That's why we brought in early childhood education specialists, not just childminders. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, we've had to close it down, because in the Philippines, daycares were not allowed to operate. But right now in 2023, we're scoping again, looking for a place to kind of reboot that program.
Thank you for sharing that. That's actually a very good example about the other parts, why integrated capital or hybrid capital is very important, because there's going to be those aspects that are not part of the business, but it's a key element to ensuring even things like Len talked about, safe workspaces. And in this case, it's workspaces that enable women to be able to contribute as well. So thank you for sharing that example. Yes, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Lina. No, because I just got so excited hearing about the initiative that Anna really provided to address the care work concerns and issues. And I think this is where we need to also get together the stakeholders from the government side. I know that a lot of the initiatives and a lot of the government efforts are geared towards now economic recovery and the aspiration to really, be at that stage, at least for the Philippines for that matter. And I hope this is where we can make that case for certain subsidies or expectations that government resources could also be allocated or invested not just in shared service facilities for production purposes or for agricultural production purposes and marketing purposes, but also shared service facilities that could provide support for care work, whether that's for children or elderly care. But I think it's really important for the child care facilities to now be also part of the conversation when we want to make sure women would be able to contribute to productive and economic means for that matter. And I would really love to reconnect or connect with you again to hear about that, because UN Women at the moment has been promoting a Care Accelerator Entrepreneurship program in the Asia Pacific, which I hope some would be interested to participate in. We're looking for solutions for care work issues that we hope we could sort of scale. And in the Philippines, that has been lacking so much. And I hope we could get together at some point to really understand how we can address and tackle that. I know Oxfam has been a strong advocate and a strong mover in that space. And I think there's a lot we can do together to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, John did mention about the care economy being very important. And I was just curious, Ibu Rini, since you had mentioned Islamic philanthropy having very innovative approaches, I am quite sure that you would probably have examples on how the care economy is also factored in. Ibu Rini?
Yeah.
Like funding as making sure that children are cared for. Do you have any examples from the work that you've done in Indonesia, for example, that's similar to what Lenin is doing? And
in the social entrepreneurship?
Yeah, making sure that women are, like the children, the fact that women have to care for their parents and their children, etc. How is that factored into supporting social enterprises? I think Mr. John was mentioning one initiative that had 800 women, that after the pandemic, it dropped to 200. And really the need for caring their families must have played a big role, right? So how do you factor in those elements of supporting women in some of the work you do?
Yeah, maybe during pandemic, I think from the Islamic philanthropy, support for women and children. Of course, in the philanthropy, we first distribute just like fund as maybe in the term of the not only for the utilization or empowerment, but of course in the distribution. Dialect is the charity. The principle of the philanthropy, we have just like the pyramids of the program. In the level, in the base of the pyramid is for the services. So this is the services as the primary need. Yeah. So the primary need, and the second one is in the above is for the development, and in the above is the empowerment, and then advocacy and for the transformation. So we support women and also children during pandemic in the level of the charity. We distribute fund as for the food, for the anything, just like in my organization, we develop just like social enterprise for the food distribution, but with the approach for in the digitalization. So we make the platform. This program is semua bisa makan. Everybody can eat. This is for the marginalized people and the senior citizen. Mostly this is a woman, and of course for the children also. We provide the voucher, and we partnership with the shop food stall in the level of community. And this voucher is we scan by QRIS, QRIS or QR code, And then this is the directly we can see that in our platform who access this program. So this is the maybe the simple sample of the we provide for the women and also on the children and also for the marginalized people, not just as women and children, but also this is the marginalized, the senior citizen who cannot walk far and who cannot have works and income. And many organizations in Zakat also provide this in the level of community and just like in the farmer empowerment. They already maybe in the Islamic philanthropy in the first or in the beginning not really aware that for the woman empowerment. Not for women empowerment, but because in the Islamic we more have approach in the level of family, level of family, because the family is the smallest organization in the community. We sure that when we empower the family, so all of the family can have more have a self-reliance. But in the practically, so now already many Islamic philanthropy going to the also very concerned also in the level of the woman also.
Thank you very much for sharing those insights.
Lina, there's a question, I think, in the chat box from Edwin.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I can't see it. So they must have sent it to you then.
No, it's on the chat box. I think, Ted, would you like to come in?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I don't see it though.
Yeah. Ted, are you still here? Edwin Lopez? Yeah, go ahead. You're muted, Edwin. You're muted, Ted. You're muted. We can't hear you. You're still muted. The challenge.
No, yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I was asking right now, we are focused on developing women enterprises to recover from the effects of the pandemic and the recent super typhoons here in Negros. So we are into training women in social entrepreneurship and capacities in management of community enterprises. But we are also looking into a joint program of development of community youth and women. We have engaged in the development of community youth as next generation farmers. And since the face-to-face mode in school came up, the youth were most of the youth were not able to monitor and sustain their local projects in the community. So the women actually assisted, or actually the women also engaged in the monitoring and sustaining their enterprises. So that's why we are looking into a development program that addresses both women and youth, shall we say, complementation and cooperation in local development.
You also had a question?
Yeah.
Question? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. One also is how will CRESCENT look into the possibility of sustaining agrarian reform? Because right now the trend is towards, as President Bongbong Marcos said, consolidation, which means that private enterprises will be encouraged to lease or consolidate the farms of small farmers under their own business operations. So the small farmers who are agrarian reform beneficiaries will return into being farm workers again and lose their entitlement of the land grants that were previously granted to them. So this is one major concern we are looking into right now.
Of course,
I hope CRESCENT would consider that also.
now, of course, Edwin, you are part of the Poverty Reduction through Social Entrepreneurship Coalition that's
Yes,
spearheading
that's
CRESCENT.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do look at agrarian reform beneficiaries as a critical segment of stakeholders who need to be assisted to recover
Yes.
from the pandemic. And I guess the challenge that you just posed is something that we need to do together. But it's actually why we look at value chains and economic subsectors and not just single social enterprises, no? Because we need to look at markets while also growing markets, while at the same time also looking at consolidating and expanding supplier communities, right? Or helping them to recover. So maybe in the first 3 years of CRESCENT, we're hoping to show that social enterprise
Is it also
models.
possible? Is it also possible for CRESCENT to facilitate the organization of private enterprises who are socially responsible?
Well, I think that's
who could
part of
serve as a sustainable market. Yeah.
that's
for a
part of the
sustainable
idea.
market for marginal farmers.
That's part of the idea, I guess, but we need to look at value chains and economic subsectors, because I think different value chains and different economic subsectors will have different market players, right? And there will be, for example, there will be value chains where fair trade enterprises can play a major role, and they are social enterprises. But there are some value chains where companies, agribusinesses can play the role of inclusive business and be partnered with community-based social enterprises. So I think we can look at both and show that those models can be transformational. No? But I think the whole point, and we are actually nearing the end, no, Lina? The whole point,
yeah, 2 minutes.
And maybe we can ask also all the other speakers to pitch in their own last words. But maybe what is important at this point is that CRESCENT is an ambitious program, of course. We are in the process of doing resource mobilization. And I think the challenge of what we will be able to do is dependent on how much resources we're able to mobilize and leverage. And we are looking forward to working with, of course, institutions like UN Women, Oxfam, as well as also Islamic Philanthropy to work with us to develop seed funds and leverage them to become bigger funds, right? And I guess it is when we're able to raise those resources and leverage them that we can actually say that we will make an impact on specific aspects of CRESCENT. So at the moment, what we have is a broad program. I think it's dependent on how much resources or where the resources we can raise those in. I mean, what thematic areas, including renewable energy, as was being suggested also in the chat box. No, that we will be able to make impact in specific areas. No? So it's just maybe an open invitation for everyone to be partners in bringing CRESCENT from being a program that has been developed through action research to becoming a program to be implemented in partnership with all of you. And all those interested, as well as engaging the private sector and governments, as well as multilateral agencies in the process. Thank you, Lina.
All right, thank you. I think we are at 5 o'clock, so we don't have time to wrap up, right?
Maybe we can ask the resource speakers to give one more round and then maybe wrap up.
Sure. Any last words? Ibu Rini, want to go first?
Yeah. What have? Maybe SDGs is ambitious. Surprisingly, CRESCENT is no less ambitious. Maybe more ambitious than SDGs. When I read the PowerPoint, wow, this CRESCENT is very, very ambitious. So I just hope that this initiative can be implemented and can be applied in the Asia, and CRESCENT can well done. Even maybe in SDGs, we don't know how many percent we can do that. Even in our mind is already have a percentage in each step. But in my perspective, in Islamic philanthropy, especially in Indonesia, this is the part of the, maybe can be part of the social enterprise entrepreneurship development. Of course, with the many with the regular.
I think we lost her. Yeah, I think we. Lisa, you're muted, so can't hear you. But I think we can't hear Ibu Rini as well.
Yeah, maybe you can go to Lenlen and
Lenlen?
Anna.
Yes, I actually have to agree about the ambitiousness, but of course we love ambition, and we love to find ways how we can support ambitious work, especially those who will make a difference to the lives of women and girls. And we're happy to support, and we wish ISEA and everyone who's involved in the CRESCENT initiative the best of the best of everything, and would like to continue having conversations, whether those are opportunities for learning sessions or hearing from each other about how things are going, lessons that we need to also be mindful about, and yeah, accelerators that we can also use in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anna?
Hi, thank you so much. Well, I think the thing that is really coming to my mind is that the markets are moving. So I feel like if we do not give support to the social enterprises, and also be very intentional in making sure that the poor are included, then the gap is also going to be even farther, because there are opportunities that are out there now that are really being taken advantage of by those who don't have like the social goals, basically the profit goals. Because like, for example, in the digital space, so many people have really kind of leaped forward because of the opportunities that opened up post-pandemic. So I think there's an urgency to really figuring this out, because the market's not going to wait. But the good thing also is that the market provides us the same opportunity. We can make it inclusive if we are intentional in creating the structures and the systems to make sure no one's left behind. So thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for intentionally turning up to talk about poverty and how we can end it. So it's been a delight moderating this session, and thank you, Dr. Lisa, for pulling this together. Bye.